Nice. All right.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Good morning or afternoon or evening, depending on which part of the world you are in. We're going to wait just a few minutes here to let some more people join us in the webinar before we move on into the content. But in the meantime, we'd love to know a little bit about you. So our question that we always ask, and I think many others ask, is tell us where you're from. So just going to kind of get to know what part of the world we have participants joining us from. So if you would, just type that into the chat window. All
Oxford.
right.
Cool.
Yeah, we get consistent attendance from the UK. That is
Yeah, I
awesome.
know, right? Well, I think it's getting near their evening. You're trying to get that last hour in.
Yeah.
Got Iowa. Oh man. How cold is it there? You got Indianapolis,
Yeah.
Indianapolis,
Toronto,
Indianapolis.
that's probably a little colder.
Yeah, I would imagine it is. All that nice little lake effect.
Oh, here, I got another question while we're waiting. Did anyone who is more up to the north able to see the Aurora Borealis the last night or
Ooh,
two? Because
yeah.
down in Austin, some said that it was outside of Austin, they were able to see it, but within Austin, I wasn't able to see
Yeah.
anything. But who was able to see that?
Don't know yet. Kevin's given us a greetings from the UK. He was with us in some of the Vodafone episodes we've had.
Saw it in the India
60,
area. Excellent.
60 degrees in Iowa. Dang, it's colder here in Raleigh. Sushil. I think I know Sushil. I think I know him where. I think, and all the peeps there in Indy from the Primo days.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's
So
raining in the
yeah,
UK.
it's raining in the UK.
Who ever heard?
I've actually been there on some very beautiful sunshiny days. So
I was there this time last year and caught their first snow when I was in London.
okay, if you're just joining us, let us know where you're calling in from. We want to know what part
Yes.
of the world. And also, if you were able to see the Northern Lights the last couple of nights,
Yes.
it pushed its way through fairly far south, further south than usually. Love to see who was able to see the Northern Lights too, because I'll be envious of you.
Lenore's visiting us from beautiful San Francisco. George Peters. Don't listen to that guy. He's in Los Alamos. Sue Shield, my man. We got to get out to Indy. Maybe catch one of those
Who,
football games.
who's Joe Golly?
Joe Golly.
I've
Psh,
never heard of that guy.
let anyone in here. Got some more people. Already.
Yeah, let's just wait one more. Well, actually, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So
Yeah, why not? Let's talk about our
yeah, so we
presenters.
got we got a good group here. So Dean, let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna moderate. So Tom Evans, I will be the adult supervision for Dean because I know he needs to. We need to keep him in control every once in a while. And I am in Austin, Texas. And Dean, I'll let you do a quick introduction.
Yeah. I'm Dean Peters, been here with Productside for 3 years, 20 years of product management like Tom. And before that, I was doing software engineering. I live right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, in the peak of good living, Apex, North Carolina. But enough about us. Talk
All
about
right.
product. Talk about product side.
Yeah. So, first of all, we want to welcome you and we want to introduce you a little bit of product side. Obviously, many of you already know who we are, but if you're not that familiar with us, we want to know that we know how hard it can be to deliver products people not only use, but truly love. And whether it's about aligning stakeholders, making sure we understand customer needs, managing backlogs, we've seen it and we're here to support you through that journey. And so that's why we're here to be your outcome driven partner. And I think it's really important that you understand we're not coming to you just to train you, but we want to make sure you train and achieve real true outcomes for your organization. So we're there to partner with you along the way, which means we provide complete solutions for transformation. We make sure that we tailor what we do to your specific needs. All of us have some amazing experience working with companies and across industries. And we're able to bring that in and make sure that the training and any other work that we do with you is targeted towards your need. And of course, we're invested. And part of our job as being trainers and consultants is stay up to date on what's happening in the world of product management and be able to bring that into your team and help your team be success, which is really one of the reasons for this webinar is helping us stay up to date on the world of AI. Let's go to the next one. But one of the things we want to make sure of is this, we love having this as an interactive session. And so, yes, we're going to be presenting, but we love to see your questions come in. But the first question we almost always get is, can I watch the recording later? And the answer is yes. After the webinar, we will be sending out a recording link to all those who attended and those who registered for the event. Now, if you have any questions during the Q&A session, please make sure to enter those into the Q&A feature. That's where I will be looking for questions that come up. And depending upon the timing, I may have Dean address it right away, or it may be a question that I hold on and address at a later point in time. Also, many of you are already participating in the chat feature. And so with the chat feature, as we're going through this, if you want to share a comment, please do that. If you want to start maybe a question or, insights from other people, post those in there. So we're looking forward to this being an interactive engagement. So before we jump into the topic, we also want to encourage you to connect with us on LinkedIn. So our LinkedIn is more than just a place to be able to follow us. It really is a community for product management. And with this, you will be able to see things such as leadership best practices, conversations about the critical role of product management and how you can be more successful and more impactful within your work, and opportunities to network with other professionals who, believe it or not, you're not alone in this world. And you will find that no matter what industry, you're going to find professionals who are experiencing the exact same thing that you are. And you can definitely do that within our community. So either go ahead and enter the link, look for us there, or you can take a picture of that QR code and be able to join us there on the LinkedIn page. So if you remember, this is a series. And so in the very first one, we really focused on the bottlenecks that are getting in the way of product managers in terms of discovery and how we can leverage AI to better help us through that process of discovery. Today, Dean is going to focus more around the practices as they relate to building better and smarter solutions with AI. And then in an upcoming webinar, Roger's going to walk us through how we use AI to help us in our go-to-market, to gain faster go-to-market with AI. And so I think with that, it's time to jump into our content. And I think the first thing you have there, Dean, is a poll. So
A poll.
yep,
There it
Kim
is.
has launched that one. And so how much faster are you getting PM work done using AI tools? Not really. So I'm going to say not really using AI to get PM work done. I'm getting 2 to 5x faster, 6 to 10 times faster than without AI. I'm not faster, but smarter and safer. What? Faster? I think AI is slowing me down. So I'm really curious to see what comes out on this.
Yeah. Give it a few more
Yep,
moments
we're
here
going to
for
give about
people.
another 5 seconds here. We've got a really good response, but if you would go ahead and get your response in there, then we will end the poll and share the results with you.
All right.
All
Well,
right, I think we're at a
yeah, I
really
think I
good
would
point here. So let's go ahead and end that, and I'm going to share the results for everyone. Are you able to see that, Dean?
I can see it. I'm going to hit the share results here. So you should be able to see the results. Yes, there we go.
Well, what's your first thought on this, Dean?
It's interesting. No one said slowing down. I thought we'd have some of those. Interesting that I'm not really using AI yet to get my PM work done. That one, at the top of the list, and that's the one that you and I really want to zero in on anyway. So,
Yeah.
uh, because I think that's where we hear and feel the most pain.
Yeah. And I will just, add on to that. Since I've been using AI on a regular basis now, I could not imagine doing PM work without it. But we do
Yeah.
want to make sure we work within proper guardrails. We have several that says it's making it 2 to 5 times faster. Some more are making it 6 to 10x faster. So that's about what 50% saying
Yep.
that it's making them faster. And I know for myself, it is probably making me a little faster, but I also think it's making me much smarter in terms of what I do and maybe even safer.
Yep. Alrighty, I'm going to share a link and give me a second here because Tom, I think I want people to follow along now. I give me a second here because my mouse has decided to go sideways on me.
Yeah, so
It's
Dean's
not.
going to be walking through this in Mural, and he's going to share a Mural link that everyone can just
There we go. So
log and
here,
follow with us. So,
right. So here's the link. So, whoops, let me do that link again here. Apparently it mangled it. There's the link. So that link is going to take you to Mural. Now, why would you want to go on Mural? Well, Mural, first of all, let's get you in. So when you click on that link, you do not have to create an account. You do not have to log in the Mural if you don't want to. You can take this button and click enter as a visitor. And then once you do, so-called Dino Bino, all right, will enter as a visitor. You will see that you have no way of navigating. So watch this very carefully, folks. Go up to the right and take this sandwich looking icon here, click it, and now you can follow us. In fact, you can just go ahead and click on number 8 and you take us to where we're at. So now you can go ahead and follow along, and I've got screenshots for us to explore. And I'll show you that in a few more minutes there. But just wanted to go ahead and show you how to navigate because sometimes you get in there and you can't see the menu. I want to give you that menu there. All righty, let me kill that off. Can you put the link in chat? I just did, but I'll do it again. There's the link in chat. All right, follow us in Mural. So we did that. Tom, let's talk about renovating our product management workflow and using AI. And I thought to get us in a renovation frame of mind.
Dean, do you have that maximized? I see
Yeah.
some other stuff on your screen other than just the
Yeah, we
murals.
yeah, we yeah, yeah, we do. We're going to be bringing those
Okay,
things onto the screen here.
got it. All
So,
righty.
I thought I'd bring in some renovation stories, personal renovation stories, because I think there's a bridge here because we've all done a home project. Tom, I know you've done some home improvement, some DIY. I think
I
you
have.
up-leveled a basement.
Yeah, so one was this was a place condo that I had moved into, and well, I bought it brand new,
Yeah.
and it had a basement area, and I
Yep.
for several years I was like, I want to get that finished out. I want to get it finished out. Well, I didn't until I was ready to go and move out of it and make it a rental place. But I finally got
Yeah.
it done. But what I really want to talk about is the removing and changing the carpet in my office because I was had an opportunity to make some changes to my office, and this carpet had been in it since the house was built.
Mm-hmm.
My son's dog had used it for peeing and other things, and
Mm-hmm.
it was really nasty smelling. And
Yep.
so I was like, I've always wanted a wood floor in here. Let me do that. So before I did anything else, I ripped that carpet out because I could not stand it anymore.
Yep.
And I tell you what, the bottleneck is me deciding what wood floor I wanted to select because there were
Right.
so many options, so many colors. And I kept falling on something that looked just like the rest of the wood flooring in my house. And I go, well, I don't want to look just like it. I want a little
Mm-hmm.
different. So I finally found something. And then I ran into the challenges of ordering it. And I the like the Home Depots and Lowe's had some, but didn't have
Mm-hmm.
much. And I found out
Yep.
they're discontinuing that. So it was anyways, long story short, I had to go and learn how to install flooring. I had to get the right tools for it. And I had to experiment a little bit because I made
Yeah.
mistakes on my initial parts of it.
Right. Right. I mean, I had to renovate a 70-ish, maybe late 60s bathroom in the 90s, and I had to rip this thing all the way down to the studs. And I had to learn how to teach myself how to tile. I had to teach myself how to, set flooring. I had to teach myself. So there's all sorts of things we have to learn if we want to renovate. And I feel like that's some of what we're going to have to do with product management. There's some old carpeting. There's some old pink walls or plumbing. There's some old tile that we need to rip out here. And so I want to talk about how we go from outdated to optimized. And it's going to start with a quick conversation on context engineering, because that sets our foundation. Then we're going to talk about problem decomposition. We're going to get into evals and validation. And then we'll finally get into some agents and prototype creation here. But to set the table of our story, Tom, imagine tomorrow you and I got an email from Rena, our CEO, and said, "Hey guys, I want you to build the ProdBot, an AI chatbot." Now, of course, you and I aren't going to sit there and tackle that whole thing there. We're going to carve out a narrow slice. We're going to use AI to help get and set some context. We're going to try to understand the workflow and then visualize and validate. So I figured that would be our storyline. So Tom, imagine Tom and I have been, and I don't know, Tom, you got any flavor or color you want to add to that, and what else you feel like we'd probably have to do besides
No,
understanding our problem? Yeah.
I would definitely, prioritize some of the steps in the process where we run into the biggest challenges as product
Yep.
managers and make sure we focus on that from the beginning. But I love your
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah. So it gets into this. If I, we have this famous Einstein quote. If I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on it, I'd spend 55 minutes, figuring out the proper questions to ask, and then I'd solve it there. So in other words, he's basically saying I'd focus on the problem and then for 55 minutes and then actually come up with a solution. So I want to basically hijack that and say, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my prototype or agent depended on it, I'd spend 55 minutes engineering the context on what problem we're solving and for whom. Because just like anything else, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, one thing you and I have probably learned in both teaching AI and doing it, it is a fabulous garbage in, garbage out machine. Which is why when we're trying to avoid garbage generation, we want to, and I'll walk through the steps, gather artifacts, and set the context. Gather research and update the context. Get examples, update the context. And when all else fails, maintain the context. I don't know, Tom, do you see a trend there at all on how we avoid garbage? I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know if
it's
I'm
it's
obvious enough.
continuously taking what you learned and set the context.
Right. I mean, and if you set the context, there's so much you can do. I won't go ahead and read through all this, but understand it's like pouring that cement in a foundation of a house. It's like, Tom, when you had to pull up that carpet there, you probably had to do some sanding on the floor. When I had to reset the floor in that bathroom, I actually had to put some thick set down. So it's creating that foundation so you don't get broken tiles, you don't slip and hurt yourself, so everything runs smoothly here. And the good thing is, a lot of AI tools have made it really simple to take
Well,
things like PDFs,
yeah. Well, Dean,
research.
I
Yeah.
want to highlight a point here is that this
Yeah.
isn't just about setting the context, but it's making sure the product team that you're working with is working from the
Yes.
same page. So I think that's really what you're focusing on right here, right?
Right, because we don't work in a vacuum, and I appreciate that so much. That a lot of us are working as teams in silos, and what I mean by that is, it's like Tom, you're working, we're on a team. You're in your chatbot session, and I'm in my chatbot session, or maybe I'm in Notebook LM, and we're working as the team but in silos. So how do you break down those silos? How do you create persistence for yourself and your team? And AI tools have made it really easy to work as a team and really easy to take things like PDFs and research and synthetic data and feedback and logs and make it available. And here's just some examples on screen. And in fact, I've done a bunch of screenshots here. Now, I'm not going to go through every screenshot. For those of you connected to Mural, you can go visit those individually. But I'm going to show you two real quick. I set up a project in Notebook LM. Nice thing about Notebook LM is it can generate things. So for example, Tom, I was actually able to create an explainer video. Now I'm not going to play the whole video, but tell
All
me if
right,
you can
let's
hear
dive
it.
in. Today, we're talking about how product managers can seriously level up their game using AI. We're
Can
going
you
to
hear
break
it?
down the key insights from an amazing webinar by Tom Evans and Dean Peters over at Productside, all about how we can start building smarter.
So I was actually able to create. Were you able to hear the sound there? Hopefully.
Yeah,
Uh,
it sounded like a robot, but yes.
I sped it up for the because we're. But the point is, this is an entire explainer video. So rather than sending out a one page here, I can send out a video that has a narration that talks us through the
Entire
points here.
renovation project. What's the final result? What do you get?
I mean, so again, it can walk us through. So all I did was set the context. All right, I didn't do anything magical. I set the context and I gave it this prompt. That's it. I just dragged and dropped files, hit the prompt. It created a video for me that I could share. So that was a Notebook LM. I did the same thing in Gemini. And by the way, if you're working in Claude projects, if you're working in ChatGPT projects or custom GPTs, if you're working in M365 agents, they all work the same way. They have a title, a description, they have starter instructions, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and artifacts. So, for example, right? Whoop, can't do that. Or it's going to download. All right. So it's how do we go? So for example, let me talk about this one here. All right. So here's some research we did. And okay, it's not doing the.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Golly.
I think we get the point here,
Yeah,
Dean. So
it
don't worry
worked.
about that
Yeah,
one.
it worked. It worked great a few minutes ago, but it's not working now. So anyway, basically these are different files and PDFs. Like this is my slideshow here, or the blueprint here. And the nice thing about that was once I set the context, I was able to create a chat session and say, "Hey, give me an HTML single page application of what the future might look like." Ooh, look at that, and I can start my clicking. I'm actually doing this in Gemini, and you can do the same thing in ChatGPT. You can do the same thing in, to a certain degree in Claude, and you can actually just go ahead and vibe your own future by just simply, again, setting the context and just giving it a prompt. The nice thing about this is you can edit things, and we will talk about vibing a little later. But I just sort of wanted to put that out as a little bit of a tease there, saying, like, oh, yeah, if you set the context, you can do that. You can do agents. There's all sorts of fun you can do. But how do I get the shared session context set up? And so again, what we have, so what you're seeing here is a session starter. And basically it's one of the, it's from Productside here. And we go ahead and share that. So I'm going to go ahead and shut that in and share this link real quick because copy the link. And I'm going to share that here for the session starter. So let me do this. And what it does, it asks you 7 questions and it creates a prompt. And what that's going to do is help give you that context you need for the instructions of your projects here. So again, you can use this. It'll walk you through in about 9 questions here. So it understands what problem you're solving and who you're solving it for. And it leaves you with a prompt that you can use either individually or you can use that in your projects or your Gemini gems or your other artifacts there. Now, enough of that. By the way, we have the links here under content creation. Here's a bunch of other links here. This shows the starter prompt that was created and how it's used. So if you want to explore a little more, you can go ahead and look at these screenshots. And I even have some PDFs of the session there as well. So feel free to go ahead and view those. But Tom and I, we're going to talk about decomposing the problem here because you and I both know it's never a good idea to boil the ocean. And if we're going to be asked to do a prod bot, an AI chatbot, we're going to try getting our proof of life or our proof of concept as small and as narrow as possible to get, make it as small and as cheap as possible, but with the most brutal truths. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe what we want to do is take something painful, like, I don't know, the TAM, SAM, and SOM analysis, and perhaps break that down. And so we're going to go ahead and take this bigger project and break it into a smaller unit of work. And the next thing we're going to do in our building is walk through the steps. So these steps look familiar to you, Tom?
It does.
How
I think I've
long does
done
it,
that before.
yeah, how long without AI would it take you to walk through those steps?
It would take me hours or days just to find the basic research necessarily to get to a, TAM, so total available
Right.
market.
Right, because each of these are manuals. First you got so first of all you got to understand what your product is. Then you got to do some research. Then you've got to calculate, and then you've got to filter, and then you got to slice it down to, and then finally you got to sit there and communicate it in a way that makes sense. In fact, about a year and a half ago, I wrote this humongous prompt to actually do this in what they call a multi-turn prompt. So the way these multi-prompt, what do you call it, turn prompts work is it has four questions it needs to ask me. And basically, it walks me through each question. And after my response, it asks me another question. And afterwards, it generates. By the way, pro tip to people, if you click on the prompt like this and you say the copy text, you can get the prompt. Or just to make life easier, you can go ahead and go to our product manager prompts repo. And I'll go here and I will share this link with you right now. And you can get the prompts for this and other things we're showing you today as well. So again, we take, because, and again, this is another way of persisting data for your team is creating these type of repos. So let me get that link shared. All right, there's the GitHub. Here's the prompts. So we took this prompt here and I said, why don't we just break this down into the steps instead? And so we wanted to look at the steps that, again, we wanted to walk through the steps here, and I'll go back here and say, well, what if we did these individually? How would I start working once I had these broken down into these 6 steps here? How would I go ahead and start building an agent? How would I go ahead and start vibe coding a piece of software, especially if I don't have evals to test and validate the steps? Now, we've all been hearing a lot about evals these days. You go listen to Lenny's podcast or something else, and they're all talking about it being some magical, mystical thing here. Folks, we're here to tell you this is nothing more than evolved acceptance criteria. And it's a combination of what we used to do in acceptance criteria plus an observability play, which is why you're starting to see so much data science language brought into this. But on the bottom line is it's just telling what good looks like. It's painting a picture of what good looks like. And what's really important here is that we need to understand that if we're working with generative AI, it is non-deterministic. So instead of being black and white or on and off, we need to write our evaluations to basically land within a range of acceptability and a range of behaviors. And the way we record that,
Dean, just real
yeah,
quick, just to
sure,
reemphasize that point,
yeah,
if I'm working with standard software and
right,
I write acceptance criteria, I
yeah,
know that if I do this input, and this input, I'm always going
right,
to get this output, right?
yep,
And
absolutely,
with AI, you can enter the same inputs and you're going to get a variation on the output. And so this is really about, did it fall within a appropriate range?
yep. Yeah, a range of behaviors or a range of answers here, exactly here, because and that's when you're working with generative AI. Now, of course, we're working with machine learning and other types of modalities. That's a different story here. But yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely, you're working with generative AI, and so and here's some, by the way, some language brought in from our friends from data science, where there's the concept of goldens, which is basically a file or a reference file, the outputs and the what do you call it, desired behaviors. So, for example, you'll see there's a prompt here and an expected response, and then another prompt. And so, well, a lot of times when they talk about fine tuning or training a generative AI model, you could possibly see data structures like this. The data structure is less important. This can be done through a CSV file. This could be done through a YAML file. It's not the format that's the magic. It's what's in it that counts. And the same thing with evals. And what these are, excuse me, which are called traces. Traces are logs of actual responses or behaviors, where basically it says, this is what came back, this is why. And it's our job as product managers to look at those traces and evaluate which ones have weak prompts or a weaker model that we need to attend to. In other words, it helps answers the question, and both these saying, is our model good enough? Are our prompts good enough? Is our filtering good enough? Is the corpus of our data good enough? So by walking through these processes, we can help make a better product. But chicken and egg problem, don't you think? How do we create evals based on prompt responses if we don't have any users yet? So what I'm going to suggest is that we can actually synthesize responses here, use synthetic data. And this is used quite broadly with teams building AI products. And I think as product managers, we don't use it enough. I know, Tom, you were recently exploring synthetic personas. I don't know if you have any thoughts on how that might be helpful.
Well, that was more doing synthetic voice of the customer, or I'm going to call it synthetic voice of the customer, where I was using
Right.
AI to represent the customer, and I think the results are interesting in terms of what I get, but a little bit different than just creating synthetic data to test a model.
Right. Right, and but the point is we're if we don't with a lack of data, and we have a lack of data for a variety of reasons. For example, when I was working in life sciences, we were working on a patient system that matched them with clinical trials. Problem is, we couldn't use real patient data. That's against the law, and so and so we basically created some synthetic data, but you have another problem. It can't be garbage, just like I said, garbage in, garbage out. You've got to build your synthetic data on realities. So, for example, people in the healthcare space, Myra has a tool called Cynthia, which basically takes physician diagnostics, and you can create actual patient-like profiles here. And we can do a similar thing, and this is where building gets, this is probably the messiest part of it all. Context engineering, I think we've all got that slam dunk here. But when it gets into synthesizing data and then evaluating it, there's still not a lot of great tools. The only one that I've seen that's really promising at a commercial gate right here, I saw one baked into Pendo with some of the tools that are coming out, and I'm really impressed with what Datadog is doing in taking log data and presenting it as evals there. Now, I'm not going to show you the Datadog application yet, but what I do want to sit there and say, we've got an example of me using one of these data science notebooks. There's a couple. There's Google Colab, there's the Jupyter Notebook, and there's a few others. And I'm going to show you that on screen really fast. Oh, and I got to reconnect. So give me a second here. It's going to force me to reconnect, of course. So let me do that. So let me do that real quick here. Okay, that was the one thing I thought we were going to take care of, because you don't need to see my authentication. So I just took that off screen here real fast. Is it reconnecting? It should reconnect now. All right, so now it's going to run here. So let me just walk you through this real quick. The nice thing about this notebook is you work slice at a time. So for example, here's one slice, and then there's another. Okay, we can do another, and so you can work in different chunks. Now, you notice I spent a lot of time just getting things set up. That's the hardest part within these notebooks. After that, it was just a matter of walking through prompts I had written. And when I walked through those prompts, it was actually able to generate the traces that what I'm talking about here and generate them in a way where I could then go ahead and compare them. So by running this, and I ran it against different models. I ran my prompts on that 5-step process that we had for Tam, Sam, and Sam, and I ran it against these different. Why do you suppose I ran it through multiple models? This was just in GPT from 3.5 all the way out to 4.1. Any want to take a guess on that? I know it's a surprise question here, but what's your thought?
Well, definitely, you wanted to see the differences in results that you got, because there's
Absolutely.
definitely
There's one,
maturity of models and maybe even
right.
stability of models. So,
There's that. And I also wanted to see what bad looks like. And I was guaranteed to see what bad looks like with using a 3.5 model. So
mhm.
I basically did a bake off there. But here's the thing. Now that it created the synthetic data here, and you can see that here's all the data files it created. And so I have all this synthetic data here and all these prompts here. Now it allows me to do the one thing. And oh, by the way, yeah, the one thing is I want to start evaluating these. So, for example, here's one of my prompts and one of my responses. All right. The prompt was summarize the problem and target users for the chatbot for product managers, building AI chatbots for large B2B. And it talks about some of the problems. And it gives me a chance to do this. For example, I still think this is a weak answer. Its citations were very weak. And I feel like the reasoning was unclear. And then I can even put some notes in here as to why. Then I can go to the next eval. Compare. Why do we look at it? So again, we're comparing ourselves against the Lenny bot, Teresa Torres's AI interview, Chad PRD, Craftful. And I think this does an okay job. I think I'd like a stronger. So again, I think the citations are weak here. So I can save that off. And so what I'm doing is I'm creating a file that's correcting this. Now, Tom, watch this one. Do not synthesize what problem is being solved and who it's being solved for. And I think that did a good job there. So I'm going to say that's a better one. And then I think there's one here. Okay, this is the one. Estimate the global population and ARPU for PM chatbots. Include your reasoning. Now look at this right here. Here's the response from the chatbot. I estimate that global population of project managers.
I missed the mark on that one.
Okay, so I'm going to mark that one fail. I'm going to sit there and put a note in here saying spell out PM every time. All right, something like that. So again, now we know that this was not a weak model. Well, actually, it was a weak model and a weak prompt because it interpreted, even in the context, that PM was project manager, which is going to give us an entirely different population, entirely different results. So now we know we have a weak link in our chain here, which means doesn't matter how good the rest of the prompts are, all the data is going to be garbage.
Dean, I have a question for you because what you're showing here is a fairly manual process. And I know
Yep.
there are initiatives to be able to better automate evals.
Yep.
And so where do you find that you can do an automated eval versus a more manual type eval?
Yeah. So I think part of it is in nuance. I think here's what and I was just thinking about this, and I've been doing some reading on this, where we're seeing the most traction, especially on the Arvix and some of these other more academic sites. It's okay to go ahead and run an automation against it first and label it or add additional scoring to it. But right now, the tools are such that the product manager is going to have to do that manual work. I think every podcast I've listened, Lenny had a podcast on that. Teresa Torres had a right now, and this is why I said this is the most confusing part about this because it's the messiest. I think we're going to start seeing evals scoring and marking getting easier. Like I said, I was over at Pendo the other night there, and I saw some of them baking that into the product. I've seen Datadog do it, and they're starting to bake that into those products here. So it's going to become less messy. So my thought, Tom, isn't either or. My thought is, let's go ahead and run a scan on it first. Let's adorn it with some additional insights. So then we can classify things and maybe instead of having 1,000 that I have to look through, now I've got a list of 500 I can look for. So I think that's a really good question here.
Yeah.
The
So
way, yeah,
I'm going to
go ahead.
throw one more question to you because
Sure.
you talked about the product manager doing
Yeah.
this eval.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like a product manager being the tester of their product. And at what point is that appropriate? Is it because you
Yeah.
said evals were kind of like writing acceptance criteria? I definitely can see
Right.
a product manager writing accept or a product owner writing acceptance criteria. Would you say the product manager needs to be able to do the eval, or do you say that they need to be able to write the criteria of which the eval would be tested on?
I'm going to say yes, because I think it's both. And I think it's an
Yeah.
ongoing
Okay.
process there. All right. Sorry. I don't mean to be a wise guy here, but I think and again, this is why, and the problem is, again, this is somewhat messy. Now, by the way, I've shared a repo on how to do this. And when you do, you'll see a bunch of Python code. Let me tell you, folks, I did not write any of this Python you're seeing here and test it out. Remember, I set the context. In this case, I use the Claude desktop, and I gave it created a project, gave it context, and asked it to write the prompts. I took the prompts and put it. I told it was for Google Colab. Put the Python in here, and this would run them one at a time until we got it right. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do all this Python, yeah, you can, because I didn't write it. I used my chatbot to walk me through how to build this model here. So you don't have to do that. But Tom, I think it's something that product managers do need to look at their product there. They do need to go ahead and get into it from time to time. So, and that's one of the reasons why I've gone ahead and shared this library. If you want to try doing this yourself in Google Colab, I'm going to go ahead and share this prompt here. Not this prompt, this repo, but give you the evals with Colab repo in case you want to synthesize and then eval yourself and just see how that's done, because that's the messiest part. Creating the synthetic data early on. I do think the product managers, to your point, if there's going to be a time I had to pick, I'd want them doing it sooner than later to go ahead and create those evals for, to set a context, because then all these evals go back into my context. They go back into the context I'm setting here. So again, it's still maintaining context there.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I think we need to get on to the next topic here.
Yeah, we do. Agents and prototypes. So now that I've got context, now that I know what good looks like, now that I got a little bit of synthetic data to work with, how do I create an agent to autonomously run things like Tam Sam Sam, my reports, my backlog maintenance, my whatevers? How do we do that and have it dynamically adjust the tasks so we don't have to do that? Because a true agent should be able to run with autonomy. Think self-driving car, which is sort of at the top of the tier. Okay. And so that means you got to give it goals, you got to give it context. Oh, we were just there. We got to give goals and guardrails. By the way, those goldens and evals now become our guardrails and guidelines for our agent. So now it can make decisions, and we can even hold accountable while it logs things here. So let's go ahead and show you that real fast here. So I just went ahead and I decided to do this in a tool called Langflow. And what Langflow does is it takes some input. Here's the input. Basically, it's saying, hey, this is going to be an agent that's going to create a prod bot, do the Tam, Sam, and Sam for them. And notice, remember I talked about decomposing big problems into smaller problems? So this is actually running a prompt at OpenAI just on Tam. Not Sam, not Sam, it's just right. And yes, I did have AI help me write the prompt. And then once it gets the Tam right, after it does research, it does the same thing for service addressable market. It does the same thing for service obtainable market. And then it even wraps them up in a nice package. And again, I just ran it a few minutes ago. It took 25 seconds to run, Tom. Getting your Tam Sam
That's quite a bit faster than that days that I was talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, and look at that. Here it is. Here's the breakdown. It even did it in a nice, it did it for 3 regions. It did the breakdowns for me, got the math right, talked about 1 year, did some risk assessment, all because I took that big mega prompt and broke it out into small pieces. And then I created discrete agents for each step along the way. The one thing we don't want to do with our little agents here is load them up trying to do 5 things at once. It never works. Plus, you wind up spending a lot more in tokens with those monster prompts trying to do 2 things at once. And this is true whether you're going to do this in Langflow. The same is true if you're going to do it in N8N. For those of you using that, a tool like that, the same thing with Zapier and the same thing with Make. So the idea again is get your context, break your things into smaller pieces, understand what good looks like through your evals, and then you can write your agents so that they can go ahead and
Yeah,
run that.
Dean,
Go
Dean,
ahead,
along
Tom.
that
Yeah.
question of eval
Yeah.
is what am I from a quality perspective or from a, QA perspective or eval perspective, what do you want to call it? What am I going to be looking at for
Right.
a set of coordinated agents like this? What
Right.
are things that are important for me to pay attention to?
Yeah. So you want your agent to capture logs, and don't want it just the prompt. You want the prompt. You want the response. You want the reasoning behind the response, and you want citations on that if possible.
Hmm.
Another, and I call that a chain of context because we've all played that game as telephone as a kid, where we're handing, I send a I tell you a message and whisper that in your ear, and then you whisper it to somebody else, and all of a sudden it loses context here. And we need to be, if that something falls apart, or as I like to tell people, a year from now, when you're getting deposed by a lawyer on why your agent gave away the shop, you can find out which agent at which prompt, on which point of context it broke down. And again,
Yep.
you take those logs and you run them through the eval process. So the same thing, you take those logs, treat them as evals, those as traces, and start looking at what good or bad is.
Yeah. So
So
it's not just about looking at the end result. It's like you
no,
testing software. You don't
yeah,
test the whole thing. You start off, you test components, and then
yep.
you start merging it together and testing.
Well, that's why I like using line flow. It lets me think through the process a bit broader. It lets me do some things I can't do in N8N and some other tools. It lets me look at the logs with that level of observability. So again, just keep that in mind there. I'll leave that. I'll leave
All
that.
right.
Closing down
I
screens
think we
here
need to
because
get on to vibe coding here. We're going to
I
run out
think
of
we do
time.
because
Yeah.
so anyway, by the way, here's the link to that if you want. But let's talk about vibe coding. All right, there's our definition of vibe coding. Basically, it's looking around the corner into the fuzzy front end. Now, here's the fun thing. You can vibe code with your chatbot. So, for example, I created a project in ChatGPT Teams. I asked it to go ahead and create me what the future looks like with the prod bot here. And look, it created for me something that I could click on, something that I could go ahead and run prompts on, something that I could go ahead and look at what the future looks like here. I think I showed that earlier with, I did the same thing with Gemini in their Canvas mode. The nice thing here is you have access to the inspector. So if you need to fix a button, you can do things like, go ahead and copy the element and say, hey, I want this button. Here it is. Hey, I want this button. I want this element in red. Okay. I can just sit there and tell it, and it'll go out and churn the code. It'll actually go ahead and write the code so you can actually download the HTML and then use that in other contexts. And there it goes. It's going to start rewriting the code right now. Oh, look at that. Look how fast it changed it to red.
Yep.
All right, and I can go see the code there. So now I can do that. Um,
Yeah,
but
this
there's
is
nothing.
this is
Yeah,
definitely a game changer, Dean. And I think
right.
I'm just curious how many on the here haven't done any vibe coding, but
Oh, it'd be
boy,
good to
in
see.
terms of a product manager being able to,
Yeah,
like, I know you talk about show don't tell and be able to
right.
show, it's amazing how the level of fidelity you can get in
Yeah,
demonstrating product
yeah,
concept so quickly. So
yeah. I mean, look at that. I did that. With I vibe this. There was a screen I did the other night with just Gemini Pro in the Canvas mode. This is what I just showed you. I did the same thing with Claude. And so in your chatbot, you can get a picture of the future looks like, and that becomes really helpful when you start using tools like Claude Code or you start using tools like VS Code. All right. So, for example, I went to Claude Code, I set up a project file. So, in fact, here's the folder. Both of these are using the same folder. They're both eating off the same, setting the context. Look at there it is, Tom. And I have the evals in there, and I have some other text. I have my research in here. I've got some other information in here as well. And basically, just within that context, I said, hey, I want you to go ahead and create for me an HTML5 single page application, and it generated it. I didn't like what I had from what do you call it, from I actually use the index file generated by ChatGPT, and I put that into VS Code, which you can run locally, and I ran it with the ChatGPT plugin. But there are other extensions as well. There's extensions for Continue. There's extensions for Klein. There's extensions that you can use for Claude Code that all bring AI. So here, I just sit there. I actually said I don't like how it looks. I feel like some of the functionality, puts this all the work on the humans. I want magic, and it actually generated code for me. So here's what Claude Code gave me. And it does some nice features in here. I can put in some prompts. I can draft a problem statement. It actually goes out to the API and makes a call. All right. So it actually goes ahead and just goes and makes a call out there. I'll write a stakeholder. So again, it just actually goes out and makes a call. And the same thing with the one we created using our friends to what do you call it, in VS Code. This is where I said I wanted more delight. And again, we can ask the prod bot here, what is the market size for AI chatbots for PM product man? No, we don't. We learn not to do that.
You know you weren't
Product
doing good on
man.
that one.
Yeah, we know not. We know just, and it'll actually go out and it'll actually go out and make calls here. So again, next step, it'll talk me through the steps here. So again, I get this take. I have a way of looking at what the future looks like here. And I can actually hand these
Dean,
out
we need
to get
to
feedback.
keep
Yep,
going here.
yep. So I can actually hand these out to get feedback here. So I could talk about that all day, but I won't. So, oh, by the way, you can go ahead and click on these examples to see that. Let's get some key takeaways here. Outcomes. They always beat outputs, right? The outputs are always about what we created, how many, when. But what I wanted to show you is how to build, how to show versus tell, how to create that, yeah, when you have no data, how to synthesize data, how to go ahead and use that synthetic data to define what good looks like, how to take what's good looks like and break it down into an agent or into an application. And
Yeah, and,
guardrails.
and Dean, just real
Yeah,
quick, is that along that
yeah,
outcomes is it's really
yeah,
important that as you're evaluating AI, you definitely want to evaluate at the model, level, or the steps that you had in the
yeah. In collab there.
within
Yeah,
the the my mind went blank there, but in terms of the
the
overall
collab note.
flow.
Yeah, that was, yeah,
But
the
but in
collab
the end,
notebook or
you
the
also
Jupyter
want to
notebook.
make
Yeah.
sure, did you achieve the ultimate outcome?
Yeah.
And
Right.
and so it's not just about, did AI do what it's supposed to do? Did you still achieve the overall outcome?
Did AI do what it's supposed to do? Did my fine tuning did what it's supposed to do? Did my
Hmm.
prompts do what they were supposed to do? Was any, if I'm put in an RAG play for resources there, for retrieval augmented generation here, are my resources nourishing? The answer is well. And so that
Hmm.
whole process, and again, if we're going to do agents, we're going to do these systems here, let's tell it what good looks like here. Let's give it the context based on outcomes. Let's use AI as a conversation starter, not a source of truth. Let it provide examples, work incrementally, but please, we don't want to get Vibe fired or get a free vacation to Club Fed. So let's make sure we follow the rules, follow the law, be transparent, and really just practice, practice, practice. Now I got some tools you can explore on this sheet here. You can look at that later, but we mentioned some tools on this. But Tom, I think you're itching to get to poll
Well,
number two.
I do
Yeah.
have one question, and this goes back
Okay.
to a comment that Joe mentioned earlier, and I really think a lot of larger companies run into that, is they're locked down around Copilot.
Yep.
And so if
So
I'm locked down around Copilot, out of these things that you've described, what are things that I can realistically do? And are there things that I'm going to
yeah.
run into limitations?
So I have been able to context engineer quite nicely in Copilot. I've been able to generate synthetic data very nicely uh, in Copilot. Eval and trace work, I had to put it in a spreadsheet, and that made it a little clunky. But you can do it if you really want to. Okay. Um, Agent orchestration, they've got tools for that in the SharePoint ecosystem here. It's doable.
Yeah, I tried to
It's
start doing something in
yeah,
Copilot, and it was
yeah, because you have to set up an agent,
hard.
which is basically a project. So it's doable, but there's a lot of hand waving. Vibe coding prototypes, they don't do it in the canvas, but it will create for you an individual file that
Yeah.
you can then load the file up. So you
Yep.
can do that. So you can do pretty much everything in Copilot. You just can't do it as well as you can in some other tools. So for example, if I had one tool to pick, to do it all, I'd probably Gemini Pro at this point in time. Next week, the answer may vary. But
I
we're
was
ready
gonna
for
say I've
poll
heard lots of good
two.
things about Claude too. So
Yep, that too. Close second. All right, let's get that. So go ahead and let's light up the poll here because we want to know how interested would you be in AI product management training for you and yourself? Because as you can see, Tom and I got this locked down. All
well,
righty.
it's an evolving area. So I'm never completely
Yeah.
locked down.
Oh, none of us are ever. We're going to be as locked down as anyone else.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. We're getting some responses here.
Yeah, we got it. The response. Let's hold it open here, maybe another couple of seconds and see if we get any more. It looks like we're reaching the nobody else is responding. So we
Yep.
got close to 80% who said they're very interested, or no, excuse me, 90% who have said somewhat
Yeah.
interested, very interested, or extremely interested. And so it definitely
Nice.
there's a hunger and understanding how to better use AI within
All
the
right.
product management work that
So
we do.
so let's feed that hunger.
Yeah, go. All right, you want to talk about that or?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So we definitely want to make sure that we give you tools that are useful and accessible. And one of those is this. Oops, let me get down to the slide in front of me. So this is the AI starter kit. So we have a lot of toolkits that are available on our website. This one is specifically focused on AI. And one of the things that we keep talking about is AI is a product and it requires product management principles, which is understanding the problem that you're solving. And so these are some tools here to help move you through that initial process of when you're asked, build some AI or add AI in, you're focused on a true problem to solve.
But that's not all.
That's not all. We also have training in AI. So our next AI product management class is coming up in middle of December, right before the holidays. And with that, you also have the opportunity to get a certification. And
Yep.
so look for that coming up. There's the QR code, or you can find that on our website. And finally, there are I shouldn't say finally, but there's the a webinar that we did a week ago on the part one of AI and 10xing our role. And there's a QR code that will take you to that recording. And we have the final one in this three-part series coming up in 1 week. And that is going to be around go to market at AI speed. All right.
Yep.
Let's see what
With
else
us.
here. And we
I'm
have
teaching
upcoming
I'm teaching
courses. It's
optimal soon. I'm teaching optimal product management. Get those
yep.
last end of your budgets going here and get in the class. Tom, you're teaching it too, live in
I'm
Austin.
teaching in person in Austin, so people love to come to
Sweet.
Austin, and especially December tends to be some really nice weather. So definitely look at these dates and come join us. And with that, let's do some Q&A. And I saw
As
there
much as we
was
can.
a couple. Yeah, we got a little bit of time here, so we got a couple of questions in Q&A. It says, Dean, have you tested your prompts with local offline LLMs using environments like LM Studio or
Yes.
Llama with
Yes.
different
And
open source or LMs to validate the quality?
yes. And you can expect me to write on that more because I think the 2026 is going to usher in more talks about localized LMS for a variety of reasons. I could go into it right now. There's a lot of good reasons for it. Depends on the model, depends on the computer here.
Right. Hmm.
So the answer is it's getting better, but
Yep.
it's
And the question is really about the
yeah.
production of IP is
Right, right.
or maybe there's some privacy reasons.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it will because if it's all local, it's not going out anywhere. So
Yeah.
you're running against the model. So for example, if you can get enough computing horsepower and then put the 30B Quen model on your machine, you're going to get some pretty darn good results.
Hmm. All right, one more question. How do you know that your results are correct? For example, how can you verify that your TAM is correct and the tool is not hallucinating?
Right. Love that question. So you notice that when we asked for the feedback, when we asked for the TAM, we also asked for citations, meaning what website did you get this at? So as the human, I can go look this up. So when I'm going through that evals process and I see a number that's like, because guess what? Yesterday I saw a bug in that lang flow, and it was like, oh, it wasn't adding the numbers, and so I wanted to see what sites it was going to. So if one of the things you need to do, whether you're prompting or whether you're writing agents or any of these, ask for citations back. So when you're running your evals process and doing your trace logs, it gives you the reasoning why it did it. It gives you the resource it used for that, and then you need to go and check it up. But this is why, Tom, we still need to eyeball things ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and that's where today I was doing some practicing around AI.
Yeah.
And what I really liked in this case is I wasn't even asking those questions, but it was offering it to me, saying, here are my sources of information. Here's why, like I did a Tam Sam Sam, and it
Yep.
gave me the whole rationale and the sources around it. So that was
Yep.
quite nice to see.
Ask for citations and reasoning. Alrighty. I think that's all the time we got for questions. A lot
I
of
think
answers.
we're out of time. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for the great questions, and hope to see you next week on our next webinar.
Alrighty. Thanks, everyone.
Howdy.